Hello everyone. My name is David Santiago Perez, and today I'm gonna talk to you about my research that I've been conducting for my thesis, and as well that I'm presenting for the International Congress of Pedagogical Mediation in Language Learning. So my research is titled Exploring the Relationship Between Multilingualism and the Sociopragmatic Competence. We're gonna start. This is where we're gonna review today. It's the agenda. So we're gonna go one by one. All right. The first question that we should ask if we really want to understand this research is what is the sociopragmatic competence? So the sociopragmatic competence is just the ability to vary language according to the social context that is culturally appropriate between the speaker and the listener. But in order to understand this, let me make an example, and this one is made by Rose. And is imagine that you have a um, very close friend in high school. So you forgot your pen and you want to ask him for a pen. You're very close and you know this friend from a long time. Well, how would you ask him for the pen? You probably will ask him, hey, do you have a pen? I forgot mine at home. Something like that, right? But on the other hand, what if you ask this? I'm really sorry to bother you, but I had to leave my apartment rather quickly this morning, and I forgot to bring my book bag that has all my pens and pencils in it, so I don't have anything to write with. Would it be possible to borrow a pen or pencil from you? That will be very inappropriate. Your friend will be like, why are you talking to me? That is very weird. So the sociopragmatic competence deals with what's weird, what's not weird, uh, and how well do you read the societal context. In conclusion, we know that the sociopragmatic competence refers to how well do you read the societal context and how appropriate can you vary the speech that you want to utter. The sociopragmatic competence also sets the limitator or facilitator, depending if you have it or not, to establishing relationships. So this is my research problem. We know that the acquisitional component of the sociopragmatic competence tells us that it is only possible to acquire the sociopragmatic competence with DI. DI is direct input. You can only learn it if you know that the sociopragmatic competence exists. And we know that teachers don't teach the sociopragmatic competence. So either we have teachers that don't know and therefore they are not able to teach it, but there's something surprising, and is that there are teachers that they don't know what is the sociopragmatic competence, and yet they are able to teach it. Or let's say with a learner, they are able um, to be aware of the sociopragmatic competence. But what is the problem with the direct input theory? That it is the only way that we can acquire the sociopragmatic competence. Well, it tells us that the sociopragmatic competence can be learned explicitly by studying the sociopragmatic competence. There is a sector of teachers that don't know that the sociopragmatic competence, and yet they are able to teach it. So how is this happening? Who are they? Who are these teachers? What are they like? What can we learn from them? This is what this research is going to be about. All right, now let me talk to you about the literature review. The current state of the art tells us that the knowledge of the sociopragmatic competence is extremely poor. It is a very dark concept in the terms of second language acquisition. There is no evidence that the sociopragmatic competence can be acquired. It can only be learned through the direct input. There is a lack of the sociopragmatic competence in the foreign language environments raised by the lack of knowledge concerning pragmatics. So we have language teachers that just don't know what the sociopragmatic competence is. So I have two hypotheses. The first one is the null hypothesis. It basically tells us the state of the art, what is the current hypothesis that we have for the acquisition of the sociopragmatic competence. The sociopragmatic competence can be read like this. So the sociopragmatic competence plus X, that is the amount of knowledge you have in the sociopragmatic competence, is equal to DI plus X, which is the amount of time you spend learning the direct input, the sociopragmatic competence. So the more learning you have, the more sociopragmatic competence you're going to have. I say that's quite wrong. So I propose this alternative hypothesis, and is that the sociopragmatic competence can be acquired through multilingualism. So this is exemplified as the linear regression between the sociopragmatic competence and the number of languages you speak are going to raise values that are above or equal to 0.5. And let me show you why. Let me explain you why 0.5. So in statistics, we know that if we're doing a linear regression, we are going to have values between -1 to 1. And those values in between shows us how strong is the correlation. 0.5 is because it's a positive value that is going to show that if you have 0.5 as a result of the analysis, you're going to have a significant positive result between the relationship of the two variables. Now let me show you my research design. This is a correlational design, as you were able to tell by the statistical analysis we talked before. The method is a simple random sample technique. It was completed thanks to an online survey, and the online survey is composed of two instruments, which is the LCP, is a language contact profile, and the ICE is the intercultural sensitivity test. All right, so what is the LCP? The LCP tells us the linguistic background of the learners, how many languages they speak, what is the ability that they report speaking those languages, and their experiences abroad. What is the ICE? The ICE measures your ability to be aware of social behaviors, and the ICE also was triangulated with the Leach model that shows us what is the components of the sociopragmatic competence. And I'm going to show you that now. This is the Leach model, and it shows us that the sociopragmatic competence can be divided into 10 dimensions like regional awareness, age context awareness, and so on. So these are my research objectives. The first one is, of course, to demonstrate whether there's a correlation between multilingualism and the sociopragmatic competence. I also want to see what are the various performances of speakers that report speaking only one language, two languages, three languages, and so on. And I also want to see what factors determine a high sociopragmatic competence in the individuals that report high sociopragmatic competence. These are my findings. We know that the sample tends to have a normal distribution. Most of them are bilinguals and trilinguals. So those speakers that reported speaking one language have a low sociopragmatic competence. Compared to those that speak three languages, they have an intermediate sociopragmatic competence. And look here, if you speak more than 4 languages, you're going to have a high sociopragmatic competence report. And I'm going to show you how that scale works. So if you have a low sociopragmatic competence, it means that you frequently misinterpret messages. If you have an intermediate one, you demonstrate a reasonable understanding of the societal context. And if you have a high sociopragmatic competence, you're going to exhibit high concern for the cultural component of language. This is the univariate report of the sociopragmatic competence according to the language the speakers report speaking. And you can see it goes on this side. So the more languages you speak, the more sociopragmatic competence you're going to exhibit. I perform an analysis in monolinguals. It's a standard deviation test because it seems like they have a rather high sociopragmatic competence compared to those that speak two languages. And in the standard deviation test, it tells us that this is because monolinguals are more aware of the awareness of interpretation that they have in their own language. So we can see that it is explained here. So this is the analysis I perform for the linear regression. These are the results. And you can see that the linear regression is positive and it's also very high. We have an R2 value of 0.9187. Remember that there's values between -1 to 1. So this means that we have a high positive correlation between the two variables. All right, but let's analyze why is that the top performing group exhibits more sociopragmatic competence. So the 72% of them reports high proficiency in those other languages that they speak. 100% of them reports having experience abroad. 90.91% reports having had multiple language contact experiences of exposure. 27% reports having more than 4 years of experience abroad, and 92 reports maintaining current contact with those languages that they speak. Now let's analyze that more graphically. Let's read the peaks. These are the most important features of them. So has had language experience abroad, reports having current contact with the other languages they speak, and has had multiple exposures experiences. These are the significance of the results, and we know that there is a strong correlation between the numbers of languages you speak and the sociopragmatic competence that you exhibit. This study proves that each language that you learn results in an increase of the sociopragmatic competence of 10.198 points in the sociopragmatic scale. And we know that while learning languages is also very significant in terms of your improvement of the sociopragmatic competence, it is also important to consider the context of those speakers. That's why having experiences abroad is very important. Having a long experience abroad is also very significant, and so on. All right, now let me show you how are these results reliable. I perform an internal consistency test, which measures the standard deviations of all the subsets of data. You can see them here. And thanks to this standard deviation, we can compare to the number of persons we have on those groups and then have a reliability coefficient. As you can see, the results are more reliable as you increase the number of languages, resulting in an 80.6% of reliability. So these are very reliable results. These are the references I use for this presentation. I appreciate the time that you took for watching this video. This has been a video that I made for the International Congress of Pedagogical Mediation in Language Learning. Thank you very much again, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.